Well, we're going to have a conversation about living with diabetes, and I'm here with my mother, Rebecca Raymer, and we're going to talk about what it was like to grow up with someone in your family that has diabetes. First of all, I think it's important to note that every family's experience is different, and our experience may be different than what the author of Steel Magnolias had to go through, because he was writing about his family's experience with his sister. So all of my acting choices are based on what I went through with my sister. So if you want to tell us a little bit about, from your perspective of a mother growing up with someone who had this illness.
Well, we found out that Ryan had juvenile diabetes when she was 5 years old. And she had a whole lot of other problems too. She was born with Down syndrome. And she had several other really severe health issues. And from that time on, our lives revolved around her and her diabetes. It was like another family member. It was horrible in that we always had to sleep with one eye open. We always had to have the blood sugar machine. We always had to have candy. I guess she wasn't the typical diabetic in that she had grand mal seizures, and they were horrific. She wouldn't show any signs or symptoms. When Ashley does the seizure in the play, at first all you see is her hand move just a little bit, and that particular movement really sends shivers down my spine, because that's what Ryan would do. She literally mimics what she saw all those years. Ryan, being mentally handicapped, was unable to tell us that her blood sugar was getting low, and she could go from a high of 500 to a low of 25 within a matter of hours.
Yeah, she was what's called a brittle diabetic. There is no regulating their blood sugar. You just can't do it.
She would move just a little finger, and all of us, or whoever was with her, because there always had to be somebody with her, would immediately be on high alert and run for the blood sugar machine. And sometimes it happened so fast that we couldn't get sugar down her fast enough, and we found out the hard way that you don't give them hard candy.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think is interesting in the play, because we talk about in the play that M'Lynn always carries hard candies with her. And to us, this is the different family experience. That makes no sense, because they can choke on those hard candies.
One time, a friend of Ashley's, who is a director now, they were actors together, was at our house, and Ryan was going into a low blood sugar attack or seizure, and they gave her some kind of hard candy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so she choked on it, and mm-hmm. They called me, and I had to give her the Heimlich, and I think her friend Craig never forgot that. And later, because of that, he cast her in this play.
Mm-hmm. The first time I played it in 2013.
Right.
Yeah. From what he remembered, he thought, since I had experienced it, that I could do it well.
Yeah, he was pretty horrified, pretty terrified.
Yeah.
It is a terrifying experience to watch your child go through that. You never get used to it. I know they tell you it's not life and death, but it seems to be life and death. And also, if you don't get to them quick enough, there's always the biting the tongue, the blood, and all that. And then the whole day, Ryan would spend the whole day recuperating, just exhausted.
Right. That's something that I think is important in the replication of an authentic seizure, is not only the build up to it, but the come down from it, because it just wears you out. You're sweating, you're just exhausted.
It was horrible. It is horrible. Ryan's still with us, and it's horrible. It's always life or death. You're always afraid that something you do or don't do will cause it to be worse, cause her to have... I felt like if I forgot the blood sugar machine... Again, she is mentally handicapped, so that put an extra burden on the family because we had to monitor her blood sugar. We had to make sure that we had the test strips and that we had the candy or something to drink all the time. Because after she went into a seizure, if we didn't have the liquid to get her blood sugar back up, we couldn't give her the candy. So we would have to give her liquid. It depended on what stage the seizure was in or the low blood sugar attack was in, because if you caught it early enough, candy would be fine. Mm-hmm. But if it was in the lower stages, say her blood sugar got down to, like I said, 25. And there were times when we lived alone. Ryan and I lived alone in the house and before she moved. And I always slept with one eye open. And I remember hearing just a little grunt.
Or a whimper.
Or a whimper.
Yeah, when I lived at home, you would just be, it was the lightest sleep possible. And I never knew that it was such light sleep until I moved out my first night out of home. I slept for what I felt like was the first time in years, and I didn't realize that I was having to just sleep so lightly. She had a room down the hall from mine, and she could just whimper, and I was up and over and checking on her. Yeah. Checking the blood, making sure she was okay, because as a family member we could read her body language and we could see when it was going to happen, but sometimes if we couldn't see it, we were always on alert as far as hearing it. Right.
And our main focus was just keeping her alive. And I know that it drove her crazy. Yeah. Because every bite of food, it's like you have to monitor, you have to make sure she doesn't overeat or undereat. Or I remember giving her the snack before she went to bed, checking her blood sugar, everything was fine. And it could drop in the middle of the night. Sometimes it was like 25 or 35. And I run and get the orange juice or whatever I had in the refrigerator at the time to give her. And she would be fine. She would sleep through it. She wouldn't even think anything about it. But it was just like, diabetes is a horrible illness. It's again like another family member. It changes your life. It becomes your life, especially if you have a child. And you never get used to the seizures. You never get used to... It's always an emergency when a seizure happens. You're calm during the time the seizure happens, but then after that, it's just you go into the shakes and the adrenaline and all of that. It's just horrible. I think it's almost worse to watch it than... I've never experienced it, but it seems like it's so hard to watch it. And I know watching Ashley perform it on stage, I cry like a baby every time I see it. And I think, oh no, not this one too. And I cannot, she does it so realistically that it triggers all
post-traumatic stress.
Yes, it triggers all that I went through with Ryan. And then I see her doing it, and I start shaking. I want to go down and I want to throw sugar in her mouth, and it's very, very, very difficult to watch. I almost cry just even thinking about it now.
Well, let's talk about things from M'Lynn's perspective then. Because I think sometimes people think of M'Lynn in this particular play as sort of a wet blanket. When Shelby announces that she is having a baby and that everyone is so excited, and M'Lynn is obviously crushed and kind of heartbroken by this news, I want people to understand her point of view in that Shelby, it says in the script that Shelby doesn't remember these seizures. M'Lynn says normality is very important to Shelby. She probably won't remember this happening. So what do you do as a parent when you have a child who is so gravely ill that doesn't know how ill she is and then makes this life-ending decision because she doesn't realize it will be life-ending? So how would you as a parent, what would your emotions be in that moment? Do you think that's a correct assumption of what M'Lynn is feeling then? Because I feel like that's what she's saying. That's what M'Lynn is thinking. You are telling me you're going to die.
Yes. If I found out that Ryan was pregnant right now, I'd feel like, oh, she's going to die. I mean, it would just be the end of everything. Yeah. As a mother, your first concern is about your child. It's
Right.
not about a potential grandchild, because
Right.
you don't know that child yet.
Right.
I'm sure after the grandchild was here, then it would become the love of your life. But your first thought is always to protect your child.
Right. Shelby is doing everything she's doing because she wants that child. M'Lynn already has that child. So she's making her decisions based on her child that is here. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, again, I feel like Shelby is a little bit naive and a little bit ignorant of this relationship.
Which I wasn't Shelby a nurse?
Yes, she worked with children.
So she would have had the opportunity to see a seizure, and probably thought it wasn't that big a deal. I mean, you know, I think the medical establishment doesn't think it's as big a deal as a parent does. Mm-hmm. Because one thing, we're not used to it, I guess. I mean, we got used to it, but you never get used to it.
Right.
It's always, to us, it's life-threatening,
Right.
and it's horrible because it's your child. You have so much emotion. You have so much... you want to protect your child. You want to make sure your child is okay. And it feels like that for that particular instant while you're watching that happen, which it's a horrible thing to watch, that you can't do anything. You're totally helpless to protect them. Shelby could never have had that feeling. Mm-mm. I guess it would be kind of like watching your child drown and not being able to save them.
Yeah, not being able to swim.
Yeah. You're just there and you're kind of helpless, and you can throw the juice down their mouth and you can do what you can do, but still it's so violent. And Ryan had violent seizures. They weren't soft, little, gentle, shake a little bit and go to sleep. They were violent, bite your tongue almost in two, and it was horrific.
What do you think is different now than then? We've discussed before, if I'd had this kind of disease myself and wanted to have a child and didn't understand how sick that I was, that you would have filmed me to show me this is what you look like. This is why I'm so concerned about you. But they didn't have that then. Do you feel like if this had happened in modern days, she would have made a different decision, or do you think that she would have gone on and done what she did?
The real Shelby?
Yeah.
I think she would have gone on and done what she did.
I do too.
I think that that was the focus of her life, is to have children. Mm-hmm. That's all she really wanted to do, and apparently she was supposed to.
Yeah. The thing is, if she hadn't, this never would have come to fruition. The play never would have been written. Obviously her son wouldn't be here, but none of us would be here, and there wouldn't be millions of people that had loved the movie and loved the play and her story. So that was her story, and I think it was just in her that this is what she was meant to do. She didn't know what the outcome was going to be. She just knew, this is what I'm meant to do, and she did it.
Yeah. And she was supposed to have that child. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think we do what we're supposed to do. It's put in us. I don't know. I know it was very difficult to get her to eat when she needed to. If we could catch it quick enough and get her to, say, eat a bite of candy bar or a cookie, it would come up and she wouldn't go into the seizure, which is what we were trying to do. And she would refuse it. She would clamp her mouth shut and turn her head to the side.
Which is what happens in the play. That's what Shelby does. She refuses any help.
Mm-hmm. And then, you try to put juice in their mouth, and it'll run down the side of their mouth. And yeah. So, again, that's why it's so hard for me to watch you do that.
Right. But again, that tells people that that's real. That's really what they do.
Yeah, and that's what you saw from the time you were... What,
6?
7? She
if it was 1986,
6.
I would have been 6.
Yeah. And
so I'm 36 now, so that's been 30 years.
30 years of living with it. Yeah. Diabetes becomes an unwelcome family member that I would not wish on my worst enemy, if I had a worst enemy, which I don't. But it's just a horrible thing, and it just seems like it's getting worse. Mm-hmm. It's like almost viral in Kentucky. Just about everybody has diabetes, or is potentially got diabetes, and it's just, I don't know. It's just horrible. So I wish everybody who lives with this the very best, and God bless them.